The hallway of Westwood High was alive with noise. Lockers slammed, shoes squeaked on the polished floor, and the chatter of hundreds of students echoed off the walls. It was the middle of the morning, and the school was at its busiest. Everyone seemed to be talking, laughing, or hurrying to their next class. But today, something unusual had arrived, and the atmosphere felt different, like a storm waiting to break. Jade walked through the hallway, her backpack hanging loosely on one shoulder. She moved calmly, almost like she was gliding through the chaos. Her dark skin shone under the fluorescent lights, and her black hair was tied neatly in a ponytail. She didn't look like someone who would cause trouble, but there was something in her eyes, sharp, steady, and quiet, that made people pause for a second and stare. Most students whispered as she passed. Is she new? Where did she come from? She looks different. Some of the older kids nodded knowingly, while others just stared in curiosity. But not everyone was friendly. Troy, the self-proclaimed king of the hallway, noticed her immediately. He was leaning against the lockers, laughing with his friends when he spotted her. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a cocky smirk plastered on his face, Troy had made it a point to rule the school. If anyone dared step out of line, he would push them down, embarrass them, or make them the center of attention in the worst way possible. Who's that? Troy asked his friends, pointing at Jade. She's new, one of his friends said. I think she just transferred here. Troy squinted, sizing her up. She looked soft, but she's scared already. He pushed off the lockers and walked toward her, his steps loud and confident. Jade noticed him too, but she didn't flinch or show fear. Instead, she walked straight, holding her head high, her eyes forward, ignoring the whispers around her. There was a calmness in her stride, a quiet confidence that seemed to annoy Troy even more. As Troy got closer, he nudged a smaller boy standing in the hallway. The boy stumbled into Jade as she passed, and she barely moved. She steadied herself effortlessly, giving Troy a glance. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was a look that said, I know exactly what I'm doing. Troy smirked. Hey, new girl, he called out, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. You lost or something? Jade stopped for a second and turned to face him. She gave a faint smile, polite but unreadable. Just finding my way, she said softly. Troy laughed. Just finding your way? Looks like you're lost already. He stepped closer, trying to tower over her, like he always did with people. You better watch where you walk. This is my hallway. Jade's eyes flicked to him briefly, and then she looked straight ahead again. There was no panic, no hesitation, just a calm, almost silent strength that made a few students whisper among themselves. One of the students whispered, wow, she's not scared at all. Troy's smile faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered. What was that? Speak up, he said, pointing at the students. But no one dared answer. The tension in the hallway was building. Everyone was watching. Some students secretly hoped Jade would fight back. Others feared what might happen if she did. Jade continued walking, her steps steady and measured. She could hear the whispers, the stares, the judgy looks, but she ignored them. She had been through worse before. She had faced people who underestimated her at every turn, and she had always proven them wrong. Troy, not one to let someone walk past him without showing dominance, stepped directly in her path. I said, this is my hallway, he repeated, his voice louder, more threatening. You don't belong here. Jade stopped. She looked at him calmly, her eyes locking with his. For a moment, the hallway seemed to quiet down. Even the slamming lockers and chatter seemed distant. Everyone could feel that something important was about to happen. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Her calmness was louder than words. It was a challenge, and deep down, Troy felt it. He didn't understand why he felt a little uneasy. She was just a new student, wasn't she? Troy leaned in slightly, tried to intimidate her. You're just another weak girl, aren't you? He sneered. Jade's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. You'll see, she whispered, almost to herself. Troy laughed loudly, trying to mask the slight tension in his body. We'll see, he said, shaking his head. Everyone, watch this. She's going to fall right in front of us. As he stepped closer, Jade straightened her shoulders. She didn't flinch. She didn't step back. Something in her aura, told everyone watching that she wasn't an ordinary girl. She had a presence that made people stop and take notice, even the ones who try to act tough like Troy. The hallway was silent for a heartbeat. Then the bell rang, shattering the tension. Students began moving toward their classes, but eyes remained on Jade. She continued walking, calm, composed, and completely unfazed. Troy stood there, confused and annoyed. Why isn't she scared? He thought. Why doesn't she run like everyone else? As Jade disappeared around the corner, whispers filled the hallway again. Who is she? I've never seen her before. She looks dangerous. And deep down, Troy knew this was only the beginning. The next day, the hallway felt different. Students whispered more than usual, glancing at Jade as she walked calmly to her locker. There was an air of curiosity mixed with fear. Everyone wanted to see how the new girl would handle the school, and most of them secretly hoped she would just be quiet and harmless. But Jade didn't care about whispers or stares. She was focused, moving with the same calm confidence she had shown yesterday. Troy was already waiting by the lockers, leaning lazily against one. His friends were around him, snickering and nudging each other, clearly excited about what was about to happen. Troy had decided he wouldn't let Jade walk through the hallway without making her feel his presence. Today, he would assert his dominance. As Jade approached, Troy stepped forward, blocking her path. His shadow stretched across the floor, and for a moment, even the air seemed heavier. Well, if it isn't the new girl, he said, smirking. You sure you belong here? Jade stopped, looked him straight in the eyes, and tilted her head slightly. I'm fine here, she said softly, calm but firm. Her voice had no fear in it, and that made Troy's grin falter for just a second. He laughed, but it was forced. Phoenix? Fine? That's all. You should be scared, you know. This is my hallway. Everyone listens to me. Jade didn't reply. She simply opened her locker, pulled out her books, and started arranging them quietly. It was like she didn't even hear him, but Troy knew she did. That quiet, calm act was what made him angrier than anything. He liked control. He liked fear. And this girl? She gave him neither. One of Troy's friends whispered, Man, she's not even scared. What's up with that? Exactly, Troy said under his breath, grinding his teeth. He wanted a reaction. He needed to feel power. Without warning, he stepped closer and shoved her lightly. Jade barely moved, just shifted her weight and steadied her books. A small smile crossed her face, almost like she was amused. You're gonna have to try harder than that, she said quietly. Troy's jaw tightened. Try harder? Oh, you're going to regret that, he muttered, loud enough for his friends to hear. He pushed her again, this time harder, trying to make her stumble. The hallway went quiet. Students stopped walking, leaning against the lockers to watch. Everyone wanted to see if Jade would cry, scream, or at least step back. But she didn't. She adjusted her books without a word. Her movements were precise, controlled, and calm. Troy's friends started to whisper among themselves. She's not scared at all, one of them said. That only fueled Troy's frustration. What are you smiling about? He demanded. You think this is funny? Jade finally looked up, her eyes locking with his. No, I'm just curious, she said softly. Curious about why you feel the need to hurt others to feel important. Troy froze for a split second. His friend stared at him, shocked. Jade wasn't scared. She wasn't angry. She was calm, but her words were sharp. They cut through Troy's confidence like a knife. He took a step closer, trying to intimidate her. Curious, huh? Well, I'll teach you a lesson about fitting in, he growled. He raised his hand as if to shove her again, but Jade didn't flinch. She didn't even move. Her calmness became unnerving. Students held their breath. Something about her made them feel like Troy's usual tricks wouldn't work this time. Jade tilted her head, studying him. Then she whispered, almost to herself, You don't want to do this. The words sent a chill down Troy's spine. He blinked, confused, and for a moment his bravado slipped. How could a new girl, someone he had expected to be scared and weak, speak to him like that? His friends exchanged nervous glances, sensing something dangerous in the air. Troy, desperate to regain control, shoved her one more time, this time trying to humiliate her in front of everyone. But Jade didn't stumble. She moved just enough to absorb the push, her balance perfect, her body calm, yet ready. Students gasped. Some whispered, "She's strong." Others murmured, "What is she hiding?" Troy's anger boiled. He wanted to hit, to shove, to yell, but every time he tried, Jade's calmness stopped him. Her presence was like a wall he couldn't break. Her eyes were steady, unshaken, almost daring him to do something foolish. Finally, Jade stepped back slightly, not out of fear, but as if she were giving him a warning. "This hallway isn't yours," she said softly. "And I'm not someone you can push around." Troy laughed nervously, trying to regain his act. We'll see about that." But deep down, he knew something had changed. Jade wasn't like the other students he had bullied. She didn't fit the pattern. He didn't understand her, and that scared him more than he wanted to admit. The bell rang, cutting the tension like a knife. Students moved quickly to their classes, but the whispers didn't stop. Everyone talked about the confrontation. Everyone had noticed Jade's calm strength, the way she didn't react like an ordinary new student. Troy stood there, fuming quietly. He clenched his fists, staring at the space where Jade had walked. This isn't over, he thought. She won't get away with this. Meanwhile, Jade walked down the hallway with the same quiet confidence she always carried. She didn't look back. She didn't boast. She simply continued on, leaving a trail of whispers, curiosity, and a hint of fear behind her. And as she disappeared around the corner, students exchanged glances. Something about her wasn't ordinary. Something about her presence made them uneasy. And somewhere deep inside, they all knew one thing. This new girl, Jade, was going to change everything. The morning after the hallway confrontation, Westwood High was buzzing louder than ever. Students whispered in corners, giggled behind lockers, and sent secret glances down the corridors. The name on everyone's lips was Jade, the new girl, the one who had stood up to Troy without flinching, the one no one could figure out. It wasn't just her calmness that had caught everyone's attention. It was the way she moved, steady, confident, and almost unshakable. Some students noticed how her hands were bruised lightly at the knuckles, faint marks that hinted at something more than ordinary. Sports? Fighting? Martial arts? Rumors started flying, growing taller with each retelling. In the cafeteria, a group of students gathered near the snack line, whispering hurriedly. "Did you see her yesterday?" one girl asked. She didn't even blink when Troy shoved her. Not even once. "Yeah," said another. "I heard she was some kind of champion, maybe boxing, wrestling? I don't know, but she's not like us." Across the room, Troy sat with his friends, trying to look relaxed, but he was fuming inside. The whispers and stares were everywhere. Every time someone mentioned Jade, his jaw tightened. His friend tried to calm him. "Ignore it," one said. "She's just a new girl. She'll get scared eventually." But Troy knew better. Something about her unnerved him. He had faced plenty of people before, plenty of students who thought they could challenge him. And yet, Jade was different. She didn't act scared, she didn't argue, and most of all, she didn't seem like she would ever lose. Later that day, during passing period, whispers escalated into outright rumors. "I heard she's been boxing since she was 10, one student said. "National champion," another added. Troy's ears perked up. National champion? He thought, yeah, right, that's probably a lie. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. He tried to shake it off, telling himself she was just lucky, or maybe exaggerating. Still, the thought of her strength lingered like a shadow he couldn't escape. Meanwhile, Jade moved through the school as usual, her steps quiet but deliberate. She didn't respond to whispers or stares. If someone muttered something about her, she just smiled faintly, polite but unreadable. She had learned long ago that people talked, and she also knew that when people talked, it meant they were curious or afraid. In the hallway, a small group of girls huddled near a locker, speaking in hushed tones. "Did you see her hands?" one whispered. "She has calluses like someone who trains every day." "She didn't even look scared when Troy shoved her," another said. "Most of us would have cried, or screamed, or ran away." Jade passed by them slowly, nodding slightly in greeting. Her calmness made them even more nervous. They had expected some reaction, some sign of weakness. But she had given them nothing. By afternoon, The rumors had spread to the teachers. Ms. Reynolds, the English teacher, had noticed Jade's calm demeanor and the way students kept glancing at her. "She carries herself differently," Ms. Reynolds said to a colleague. "It's like she's been through something big, something that taught her not to be afraid." Even Troy's friends were starting to whisper behind his back. "Maybe she really is a champ," one muttered. "Have you seen her? She's too calm to be ordinary." Troy felt his anger grow. How dare everyone think Jade was special? How dare they give her attention that should have been his? But no matter how much he tried to act cool, he couldn't ignore it. And worse, Jade didn't seem to notice him at all. That afternoon, as Jade walked toward her locker after class, Troy decided he couldn't wait any longer. He needed answers. He needed to see for himself what this girl was capable of. He followed her at a distance, pretending to look for books in the nearby lockers. Jade noticed him out of the corner of her eye, but didn't react. She didn't need to. She had already sensed his presence. Her steps remained steady, her breathing calm. Troy's impatience grew. He wanted a reaction. He wanted proof that she was just a girl who could be intimidated. But Jade was thinking ahead, as she always did. She knew Troy would test her eventually. She knew he couldn't let go so easily. And she was ready. Not yet, but soon. Back in the cafeteria, students continued to whisper. "She's too strong," one said. "She's scary," another student added. "I heard she was in a national tournament." Like really serious. No wonder Troy couldn't push her around. Troy overheard the words and clenched his fists under the table. National champion, he thought again. He shook his head, trying to dismiss it. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of fear, or maybe respect. By the end of the day, it was clear to everyone, Jade was not an ordinary student. She was calm under pressure, confident, and mysterious. She didn't seek attention, but attention found her anyway. Students whispered about her everywhere she went, creating stories, exaggerations, and even a little fear. And somewhere in the shadows, Troy plotted. He didn't understand her, and that made him dangerous. He didn't know how to deal with someone who wouldn't bend to his rules, who wouldn't react like everyone else. As Jade walked home that afternoon, she allowed herself a small smile. The rumors were spreading exactly as she expected. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let Troy think he was in control. Soon enough, she would show them all who she really was. It was Friday afternoon, and the school hallways were buzzing with the usual energy. Students were laughing, talking about weekend plans, and hurrying to finish their last classes. But today, the air carried a different tension, a quiet, dangerous electricity. Everyone seemed to know something was about to happen. Troy had spent the morning watching Jade from a distance. He tried to act casual, leaning against lockers and chatting with friends, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. Every time she walked by, calm and composed, he felt that uncomfortable twinge again, the one that made his confidence falter just a little. By lunchtime, Troy's patience had run out. He had to know exactly what this girl was capable of. He had to prove, once and for all, that he was the one in control. He whispered to his friends, "She's going to regret walking into my hallway. I'll make sure of it." Word spread quickly through the student body. Students watched with quiet excitement and fear as Troy gathered his friends by the lockers near the main hallway. He wasn't subtle about it. His posture screamed confidence, but deep down he was nervous. This wasn't just another new student. This was Jade, the girl who didn't flinch, who didn't bow, who had somehow made the entire school whisper about her calm strength. Jade walked through the hallway carrying her books, completely unaware that Troy and his friends had already formed a small crowd, blocking her path. The hallway felt smaller, tighter, as if Troy had claimed it as his territory. "Hey, new girl," Troy called loudly, making sure everyone could hear him. "Yeah, you. Come here for a second. I've got a question for you." Jade slowed her pace, but didn't stop. Her eyes glanced briefly at Troy, calm and measured. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice soft, almost polite, but there was steel underneath that softness. Troy smirked, trying to appear confident. "I just want to know, are you really as tough as everyone says? Or is it just a story?" Jade raised an eyebrow. "I don't know. Are you really as strong as everyone says?" She replied quietly, her tone teasing. The calm, collected smile on her face only made Troy's patience fray further. "You're gonna find out," he growled, stepping closer. He shoved her lightly, expecting her to stumble. But she didn't. Jade shifted her weight, adjusted her stance, and didn't even flinch. The students around them gasped. Whispers spread instantly. "Did she just—" "She didn't move. She's calm." Troy's friends exchanged nervous glances. They had never seen anyone stand up to Troy like this. Not even close. "Try that again," Troy muttered under his breath. This time, he shoved harder, wanting to humiliate her. But again, Jade absorbed the push, her balance perfect, her posture steady. She didn't retaliate, at least, not yet. Jade finally spoke, her voice low but clear. "You don't want to do this." Troy's smirk faltered for just a second. No one had ever spoken to him like that. He laughed nervously, trying to cover it up. "Do what?" "I'm just asking a question," he said, raising his hands in mock innocence. But Jade's eyes didn't leave his. There was a quiet warning there, a promise that if he continued, he would face consequences he couldn't imagine. The students around them sensed it too. A hush fell over the hallway. Even the lockers seemed to stand still, as if the building itself was holding its breath. "You're lucky this isn't a fight," Jade whispered, almost to herself, though loud enough for Troy to hear. "Because if it were—" Troy's fists clenched. He wanted to react, to shove, to yell, but he hesitated. For the first time, he felt fear, or maybe respect. Jade wasn't just another girl to push around. She was calm, strong, and aware. Every move she made seemed controlled, deliberate, like she was waiting for the perfect moment. "You don't scare me." Troy finally spat, trying to regain control. He lunged forward, attempting to intimidate her physically, but Jade moved slightly, sidestepping with perfect balance. She didn't attack, but her movement alone made it clear she could if she wanted to. The students gasped again. Some whispered, She's ready." Others muttered. Troy messed with the wrong person. Jade didn't speak. She simply looked at him, calm and unshaken, her hands relaxed but her body ready, as if saying, "I'm not afraid, but don't test me." For the first time, Troy felt uncertainty. The hallway that had always been his domain suddenly felt dangerous. He realized he couldn't control this girl, not like he had controlled everyone else. And deep down, he knew he had underestimated her. The bell rang, breaking the tension. Students slowly moved to their classes, but all eyes remained on Jade and Troy. Both of them stood in the hallway, the silence between them heavier than any words. As Jade walked away, calm and collected, she glanced over her shoulder just once. Her faint smile was almost teasing, a silent message that the challenge wasn't over. It was only beginning. Troy clenched his fists, watching her walk away. His friends tried to comfort him, but he didn't feel like talking. He realized something chilling. He couldn't push her like everyone else. He couldn't intimidate her. And worst of all, he didn't know what she was capable of. And somewhere deep inside, Troy knew the truth. The real challenge was coming, and he might not be ready. The next morning, Westwood High was alive with whispers and glances. Everyone remembered yesterday's confrontation. Troy had tried to intimidate Jade, and she hadn't even flinched. The memory of her calm, confident eyes lingered in every student's mind. By now, rumors were running wild. Some said she had been a champion in martial arts. Others whispered about boxing, and a few even claimed she could take down anyone who dared to challenge her. Troy, however, refused to believe it. "She's just lucky," he muttered to himself, pacing in the hallway. His friends watched him nervously, sensing the storm inside him. "Lucky or not, I'm going to show her who's boss today," Troy said, determination in his voice. Jade, meanwhile, walked through the hallway as she always did, calm, composed, and completely aware of her surroundings. She noticed Troy from the corner of her eye, but didn't react. She had anticipated this moment. She knew he would push further. She had expected his arrogance. And she had planned her response carefully, though she didn't reveal it yet. As she approached her locker, Troy stepped in front of her. "We need to settle this," he said, his voice low but sharp. His friends formed a semicircle around him, trying to act supportive but visibly anxious. Jade paused. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the hallway seemed to shrink. Students stopped walking, lockers slammed quietly, and whispers faded into silence. Everyone could feel the tension, heavy and electric. "I don't want trouble," Jade said softly. "But I also don't back down." Troy smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see about that," he growled, pushing her lightly. Normally, this would make someone stumble or react, but Jade didn't move. She absorbed the push with perfect balance, her body steady and strong. The students around them gasped. She's holding him off," whispered someone. Another student muttered, "No one does that to Troy." Troy, frustrated and determined, pushed harder. This time, he expected her to lose her balance, but she didn't. Instead, she shifted slightly, her stance smooth and controlled, like water flowing around a rock. She looked at him, calm but alert. "Enough," Jade said, her voice low but powerful. "I warned you." Troy laughed nervously. "Warn me? What do you mean?" Before he could push again, Jade moved with lightning speed. Not aggressively, but with perfect technique. In a single motion, she sidestepped him and used his momentum to make him stumble forward slightly. It wasn't violent, but it was enough to show him, and everyone watching, that she was in control. Gasps echoed through the hallway. Students whispered excitedly, "Did you see that? She moved him like nothing. She's strong, really strong." Troy's face turned red with embarrassment and rage. He tried to regain his stance, but Jade didn't give him the chance. With a calm, measured motion, she blocked his next push and shifted him off balance again. "Stop!" Troy shouted, realizing for the first time that he was being outmaneuvered. His friend stepped back nervously, unsure how to react. Jade didn't attack. She didn't need to. Her calm, precise movements were enough to prove her skill. Every step, every motion, showed that she wasn't just calm. She was trained, disciplined, and powerful. A flashback crossed her mind. Early mornings at the gym, hours of intense training, countless punches thrown against bags and pads, her medals lined up on the wall at home. She had worked for this. She had trained to stay calm under pressure, to control her body and mind. And now, here in the hallway of Westwood High, all that training was visible in every subtle move she made. The students couldn't believe it. Troy, the self-proclaimed king of the hallway, was being handled so effortlessly by a new girl. Some of them laughed nervously. Some whispered in awe, and a few just stared, their mouths open. Finally, Jade stepped back, giving Troy space to recover. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," she said, her voice calm and clear. "But don't test me. You'll regret it." Troy, breathing heavily, straightened up. For the first time, he looked uncertain. He had expected fear, maybe tears, or at least some reaction he could mock. But nothing like this. Jade had shown him, and everyone, that she was not someone to underestimate. One of the students whispered, She's a champion, isn't she?" "Yes," another said quietly, eyes wide. "I think she really is." Jade didn't need to speak. The proof was right there in her movements. Calm, precise, confident. Every student watching now understood. She was trained, she was skilled, and she was more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Troy backed away slowly, his face a mixture of anger, disbelief, and a little fear. He realized something important. Jade was not ordinary. She wasn't just another student. She was someone who could challenge him. And if he underestimated her again, he would lose, not just respect, but control over the hallway he had ruled for so long. As the students returned to their classes, whispering excitedly about the confrontation, Jade walked calmly down the hallway, her backpack over one shoulder, as if nothing had happened. Her eyes scanned the hallway briefly, resting on Troy, who was nursing his pride and plotting quietly. She knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. But for today, she had made herself clear. And as she disappeared around the corner, one thing was certain. Everyone, including Troy, now knew that Jade was not just the new girl. She was the national boxing champion, calm, controlled, and unstoppable. The hallway at Westwood High was quieter than usual the next morning. The previous day's confrontation had left a mark, not just on Troy, but on the entire school. Students whispered excitedly, recounting every detail. How Jade had stood her ground, how effortlessly she had handled Troy, and how her calm confidence had left even the toughest students speechless. Some students gathered in small groups, replaying the events in their minds. "Did you see how she moved him?" one boy whispered. "Like it was nothing. She's a national champion," another girl added wide-eyed. "I mean, really, she's on another level." No one could have predicted that. Even the teachers noticed the shift. Ms. Reynolds, walking through the hallway, caught sight of Jade at her locker. "She's composed," Ms. Reynolds said quietly to a colleague. "I've seen many students, but she carries herself differently. Calm, collected, focused. That's rare." Troy, meanwhile, was sitting at a table in the cafeteria with his friends, nursing his pride and quietly seething. His face was red with embarrassment, and his usual smirk was nowhere to be found. For the first time, he realized that no matter what he did, he couldn't bully Jade the way he did everyone else. "She's just a new girl," Troy muttered under his breath. "She doesn't scare me." But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. He had felt her power, her control, the quiet strength she had displayed. He had felt it in his bones when she moved, when she sidestepped him, when she made him stumble without even hitting him. Outside the cafeteria, students whispered again. "Troy messed with the wrong girl," someone said. "Yeah," another replied. "I wouldn't want to get on her bad side. She's dangerous, like really dangerous." Troy's friends tried to calm him. "Relax, man. She's a girl. You'll be fine. Everyone's just talking because she surprised them," one said, though even he sounded unsure. But Troy couldn't shake the memory. He had always been confident, always in control. And now, he felt small, not just physically, but in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Jade walked calmly to her next class. She didn't boast. She didn't look around to see who was watching. She simply moved with purpose, her mind focused on her own goals. But she was aware of the whispers, the curious glances, and the cautious stares. Let them talk, she thought. Let them wonder. It only made her presence stronger. Some students approached her hesitantly. "Hey, that was wow," one girl stammered. You handled him so well." Jade smiled faintly, polite but quiet. "Thanks," she said simply. "No arrogance, no gloating." That humility only added to her mysterious aura. Even shy students started showing signs of respect. They realized that Jade wasn't just strong physically, but she also had courage and control, qualities many admired but few possessed. Troy, meanwhile, watched from the other side of the hall. He clenched his fists under the table and gritted his teeth. Pride and anger battled inside him. He couldn't let this slide. He couldn't be shown up by a new student, no matter who she was. As he watched Jade interact with other students, a small part of him couldn't help but admire her composure. But he quickly pushed the thought away. He was Troy, the king of the hallway. No one could challenge him and get away with it. Yet, the reality was undeniable. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had whispered about it. And deep down, he knew he had to do something eventually. Not now, but soon. He needed a plan, a way to regain his control, a way to make Jade feel vulnerable. For now, though, he kept his distance. Every step she took, every calm word she spoke, reminded him that he was not in charge anymore. The hallway belonged to no one now. Not him, not his friends, not anyone who tried to claim power with threats or shoves. Jade, unaware of the storm brewing in Troy's mind, focused on her classes. She was disciplined, studying hard, moving through the school with quiet strength. But she remained aware of her surroundings. She knew Troy would not forget what had happened. She knew he would plan. She knew he might try again. But Jade was ready. Always ready. Every glance, every move, every calm breath she took reminded her of her training, her discipline, and her strength. She had faced challenges before. She had faced stronger opponents, tougher fights, and harder situations. Troy was nothing compared to that. By the end of the day, it was clear to everyone. Jade had earned respect, not through words, but through action. Students whispered her name with awe. Teachers observed her with interest. Even Troy, sitting alone in his frustration, could not ignore her impact. The hallway had changed. The rules had changed. And everyone, even those who had been silent, understood one thing. Jade was not someone to underestimate. As the final bell rang and students rushed out, Jade walked calmly toward the exit, her backpack over her shoulder. She glanced once at Troy, who watched from the doorway, a mix of anger and curiosity in his eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. But her calm, steady presence spoke volumes. The battle of respect had been won, at least for now. The next week at Westwood High felt different. The halls were still buzzing, but there was a new energy. Students whispered less in fear and more in admiration. Jade's calm strength and precise skill had left a lasting impression. Her quiet confidence had shifted the balance of power in the school. Troy, however, remained a storm of frustration and unresolved pride. He wandered the hallways with his friends, trying to act casual, but every glance toward Jade reminded him that the dynamics had changed. He had been so used to controlling the hallway, intimidating others, and being the center of attention. Now, he was no longer sure of himself. And deep down, he knew Jade had changed everything. Students gave Jade space, but still watched her with quiet respect. Some smiled nervously when she passed, while others nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Even the shyest students felt safer knowing that someone strong and fair, someone who would not bully others, was now part of their school. Jade noticed the changes, but she didn't let it affect her. She walked through the hallways with calm purpose, her backpack hanging easily on one shoulder. She didn't flaunt her strength. She didn't boast about her skills. She simply carried herself with quiet dignity, aware of the attention she drew without needing to ask for it. In the cafeteria, a few students approached her cautiously. "Hey, we just wanted to say thanks," one said nervously. "Thanks for standing up to him. I mean Troy." Jade smiled faintly, polite and gentle. "No problem," she said softly. "Just make sure you don't let anyone push you around. Stand your ground." Her words carried weight. It wasn't just strength that impressed the students. It was her wisdom, her calmness under pressure, and the way she handled herself without needing to prove anything. Troy, sitting at his usual table, watched the interactions with a mix of anger and confusion. He had expected jealousy, fear, maybe even submission from the students. But what he saw instead was respect. Respect for Jade, and perhaps for the first time, for someone other than himself. His friends tried to comfort him. "Relax, man," one said. "She's just new. You'll get her back." But Troy couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Jade had not only defended herself, but had earned admiration from everyone around her. And he realized that no amount of intimidation could take that away. Jade moved to her next class, passing through the hallway with ease. Some students whispered encouragements. Others quietly followed her example, walking a little taller, standing a little straighter. The ripple of confidence she left behind was subtle but powerful. During the break, Troy finally approached her. His face was red, a mix of frustration and determination. He wanted to test her again, to reclaim some sense of control. But when he saw her calm, composed expression, he paused. He realized that this wasn't just a fight he could win by force. She was smarter, stronger, and quicker than he could have imagined. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. You're good." Jade looked at him steadily, her eyes calm and piercing. "Thanks," she replied simply. She didn't gloat. She didn't put him down. She just acknowledged the truth. For a moment, Troy didn't know what to say. He had expected fear, submission, maybe even tears. But not respect, not acknowledgement, not calm strength. And in that moment, something shifted. He realized that this girl was not his enemy. She was simply someone he had underestimated. As the days went by, Jade continued to make her mark quietly. She joined the school's boxing club, helping others improve, showing discipline, and teaching techniques with patience. Slowly, students began approaching her for advice, inspired by her skill and her calm demeanor. Troy observed from a distance, wrestling with his pride. He wasn't ready to admit it fully, but even he began to respect her. And while he still had a sense of rivalry, it had transformed into something different. Not fear, not anger, but a quiet understanding that Jade was exceptional. By the end of the month, the hallways of Westwood High had shifted in subtle ways. Students stood taller. They spoke up for themselves. They watched out for each other. And in the middle of it all, Jade remained calm and composed, a quiet force of strength and confidence. Even Troy, the self-proclaimed king of the hallway, learned something important. True respect isn't earned through fear or intimidation. It's earned through skill, courage, and composure. And Jade had shown him that in the most unforgettable way. As she walked down the hallway one afternoon, students parted slightly to let her pass, some offering nods, others quiet smiles. She glanced at Troy, who looked back at her, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. No words were needed. They both understood that a new balance had been set. Jade walked on, calm, steady, and unstoppable. She had arrived as the new student, faced the toughest challenge, revealed her strength, and earned the respect she deserved. And though her journey at Westwood High was just beginning, one thing was certain. She had already changed the school forever.